Hello everybody, my name is Daniel Constantino. I'm Executive Chef with Constellation Culinary Group. I'm going to show you a recipe today for what am I showing you today? I'm going to show you a recipe today for a almond cherry chocolate bark. Very simple, easy to make, you don't need a lot of equipment. Metal bowl and a pot of water, is a sheet pan and some parchment paper. There's a couple ingredients like bittersweet or dark chocolate, dried cherries, almonds, either whole or shaved, and a little bit of sea salt. So first thing we're going to start with is the almonds. So right here we have half a cup of almonds. This is not half a cup of almonds. That's a cup and a half of almonds. We're just going to measure it out. So we're going to take half a cup of almonds, right? And we're just going to throw them right onto a sheet pan. You can use whole almonds, you can use slivered almonds, whatever you have works just fine. All you want to do is just make sure that your almonds are spread out evenly on your sheet pan. You want to put them into a preheated 350-degree oven for about 6 minutes. So while your almonds are toasting, you're going to want to start melting your chocolate. If you're using the microwave method, that information is inside the recipe, but I'm going to show you the double boiler method. So I have here is 12 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. It's about, almost a pound. Not really almost a pound. It's 3/4 pound of bittersweet chocolate. And it's just chopped up into these blocks. So I have smaller pieces and I have larger pieces. And this helps me control the temperature in which I melt the chocolate. Since I don't have a candy thermometer and I'm not going to be too precise about this, we're just going to, just use the different size chunks to kind of regulate the temperature. I'm just going to throw this right into the bowl. And I'm just going to let it sit for a minute and just let it start melting. The bowl will heat up slowly with the steam that's underneath it. And we're just going to have to stir it occasionally so that it just melts evenly. Almonds are toasting. I can almost smell them, so we're going to check on them to make sure that they're okay. So now that our almonds are toasted, they're lightly brown around the edges, and you can very fragrant, and you can smell them. We're just going to put them aside for now. So I have these extra ones here that I'm not going to need. I'm just going to put these away for now. And then we're going to take this parchment paper and we're just going to turn it into a little slide for the almonds. We're just going to slide them into this bowl. Be very careful, you don't want to touch that pan. The pan's extremely hot. We're just going to slide these puppies right in there. Got a couple stragglers. Like I said, it's hot, so I'm going to leave that long. Okay. And we're going to move this out of the way for now. Don't throw away the parchment paper. It's actually going to be used again later. So, everything's going in the same place. And we don't want to waste all that excess paper. So we're just going to hold on to this for a minute. So I've got my toasted almonds now. My chocolate is starting to melt, so I'm just going to keep stirring it here. And you don't need to continuously stir it. You're just going to stir it every once in a while. Just making sure that you're scraping down the edges and kind of keeping majority of the chocolate in the center. Because you don't want it to burn. If it goes on the edges, the edges are more likely to burn. So while that is still melting, we're almost ready. I am going to chop up the dried cherries. So nothing fancy, just a quick rough chop. You just want them into smaller pieces so it blends into the chocolate a little more evenly. So I'm just going to run a knife through this here. Oops. So this chocolate is just about there. So I got a couple big chunks in here and it's slowing down the process, but it'll get there. And once it does, we're going to pour it out on our sheet pan. so close. Might help if I had it on. That's probably why it's taking so long. The water's still a little warm. Now that our chocolate is melted, you can see it's nice and smooth and not burnt, which is good because I usually burn chocolate. We're just going to do something very simple. You got your sheet pan with your parchment paper on it, right? You want to make sure there's no water or anything on your parchment paper. Or actually, I should have said this earlier. You don't want water in just about anything that you use with chocolate. Chocolate and water don't get along, and it will really mess up your chocolate. It will actually seize your chocolate where it just gets hard and it's just useless. So we're going to take this parchment paper on our sheet pan and we're just going to dump the chocolate right into the center of the sheet pan, right? I'm just going to make sure we scrape out all that chocolate. Put that there for now. And we're just going to spread it out to about a 1/4 inch thick. We're just eyeballing it, but you're not really, it's not going to fill the whole sheet pan. We just want a relatively thick, just enough to hold up so that when we break it up later, it just doesn't turn into crumbles. It comes and breaks off into larger pieces. So you can see I got all this extra chocolate. Make sure we get that off. You can also just use your finger, pass it on to, lick the spoon, just like the good old days, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to throw this in because I want all the chocolate. Just going to wiggle our pan a little bit to make sure that we're kind of level, the little air bubbles out. And we're just going to sprinkle on these cherries. And then we're going to fill in the blanks with the almonds. It's just like making anything else. Like a pizza or whatever. Just going to sprinkle this in. And this is actually what's going to help hold all this together. Alright. Just kind of smack it to settle it into the chocolate. And then this is an optional ingredient. So I like chocolate with salt. You can add sprinkle a little bit of salt on it. What I like to use is a flaky sea salt, or this is actually fleur de sel, which is sea salt. Kosher salt doesn't really work. It just doesn't work. You want something light and flaky so that you can get that saltiness, but you also don't overpower everything. And you don't need much. This recipe calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Basically like the tiniest little pinch. And I'm just going to sprinkle that in just to get a couple of places, but you're not covering the whole thing. All right. Then we're going to take this bark and put it in the fridge for about 15 minutes. This way the chocolate gets nice and hard, and then we break it up, it will hold together. So after about 15 minutes, your bark should be ready. So we're going to take this out. And we're just going to test it by just lifting the paper to see if it's straight. If it starts to bend, the center, which takes the longest to cool, is going to start bending. So this is actually pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to do the fun part. So we're going to take this off. And we're just going to break it up into pieces. So I kind of made like an oval shaped here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see how that works. All right. Just break it up into pieces that are about 2 or 3 bites. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want, you can cool it and then maybe cut it. If you're going to do that, you should probably let it sit for about 10 minutes and check it before it completely sets. As you can see, the cherries kind of make it nice and sticky. What you want to do is work fast so that the heat in your hands doesn't melt the chocolate. Now we have almond cherry chocolate bar.